went out of the marriage and had sex with other people. Now, Dan Savage had this guest on his show and talked about whether that was right or not. And first of all, this is what I think about this. First of all, if the guy was in a marriage, let's take the marriage out of it for a second. He's in this relationship with someone else and they don't want to have sex with him. Yes, he has the right to have sex with someone else, in my opinion. However, if he's married, he does not. So if he's committed to a monogamous relationship, then he's made that commitment, whatever. He doesn't really have the right to do it without breaking up with her. And that's what he even mentioned. He said, well, that doesn't really make fucking sense because, I'm going to break up my whole marriage just so I can go get my rocks off. But that's an important thing as well. So it is a difficult thing. But the question he asked is monogamy like dead? Is it a bad thing or whatever? And of course, it's not a bad thing. I think monogamy is a great thing. And I think it works with the right person. You have to have the right person with you, first of all. And in every way, you have to be compatible sexually, mentally, physically, all those things, and it works. But if you're missing a component of that in one of those areas, then it will not work. And someone will end up cheating on the other person for either emotional support or sexual support or something. So you have to be with the right person, or the other person has to make the effort. Both people have to make an effort. And monogamy, it's in my opinion, monogamy is not outdated. And in gay relationships, gay people are generally more open with their sexuality. And I think that's because we, typically have to deal with our sexuality so early on, even if it's internalized ourselves and not actually have to tell other people about it, but we have to deal with it and come to terms with it. And so we are typically repressed for so long sexually because of society. That once we do come out, typically we're very open with our sexuality or generally very open to sex in general. And so I think for us as gay people, gay male relationships are generally, gay men, I think, generally have more of an understanding, if they want to, about sex and don't look at it as much as a negative if they go outside the relationship. However, I do. I don't want that, and it's something that's not what I want. But I think that people who do, if that works for you, that's fine. I think if it works for you to have an open relationship, then more power to you. If it works for you for whatever reason, good for you. I personally don't want that, but does that mean it can't work for everybody? No. Some people need this, some people need that. Whatever works for you is what people should be doing. And no one should judge people for what they do. I mean, people who are in three-way relationships or polyamorous relationships or whatever, so fucking what? Let them have their fucking life, let them live. And there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. So fuck them. Okay, the other thing was, there's a straight bi men thing. First, let me talk about uncut penises and cut penises. Okay, so there's another article I read, I think it was on Queerty or something, cut or uncut, which do you prefer? And I think I've talked about this on the show before a long time ago, but I personally find it to be, I think circumcision is a stupid, outmoded, barbaric act. I don't think I know it's not necessary. It's never been necessary. It's only for some people find it more aesthetically pleasing to have a cut penis than an uncut penis. I personally don't find that to be true. I like both, and I personally prefer uncut penises on myself as well as on other people. And of course, there are some that look like Shar-Peis, and of course, they're not attractive, and there's some that aren't, and mine's pretty. But there are ones that are cut that are just as ugly, depending on what the head looks like or whatever. So my point is that if it's done just for an aesthetic reason, it's ridiculous, because it's meant, that's the way God or nature, whatever you believe in, designed the penis. It has a foreskin for a reason. It's to increase sensitivity, and it's a functional thing. And so when people remove that from a kid without his permission, as an infant, obviously he can't have a say in it. That's completely wrong, if you ask me. I think that if people want to have circumcision or whatever, they should leave it up to the boy to do when he gets older, and he can have the surgery if he decides to have it. But it really is a horrible thing. I mean, and I do believe this. I've said this a long time. I think that, if I think about men who are circumcised versus men who aren't circumcised, whether they're gay, straight, whatever, my experience has been, and just because I'm kind of observant individual. I've always been this way about human nature. I don't know why. I just kind of am. But I've always been observant about people in a lot of different weird ways, things you wouldn't necessarily think about or know. But people who I've noticed throughout my life have been circumcised generally are more aggressive than people who are uncircumcised. And if you look at the entire cultures, only 55%, by the way, of American men these days are circumcised, and it's dwindling down because of society's changing its attitudes towards it in America. But 98% or 96% or something like that of European men are uncircumcised. And so if you look at the different cultures, the way American men are and the way European men are, that's one example of what I'm talking about. Most European men are far less, I mean, they have machismo, they have all those things, yes, but they have a more sensitive side to them. They're not so, they don't, generally, of course, I'm just talking generally, generalizations here. They don't have this need to prove themselves so much as the way a lot of cut guys do. And so this is probably ridiculous to you, but this is what I think. And so I think that because people who get circumcised as an infant, I think they have this trauma that they don't remember, and that they have negative associations with it necessarily subconsciously. And so as you know, whereas guys who are uncut don't have those things, they don't have these fears about sex, they don't have this certain attitude towards it the way they do. And also cut guys don't experience it as well. You know, guys I've been with before who have been cut always want to feel what the foreskin feels like over their head, because they like that. And they're like, oh my God. And so they know then what it's like to be uncut, because it's a completely different experience and it's being cut. So I find it to be a really ridiculous and outdated thing for people to be doing. And if you ever have a kid, if you're gay or whatever you are out there, do not circumcise your boy. Do not circumcise him. Do not do it unless there's some medical necessity for it. There's no reason to do it. You know, people, when you talk about girls being circumcised, they never say it's, oh my God, that's horrible. It's horrific. It's barbaric when they do it in other countries, you know, like Africa specifically. And it's exactly the same thing when you're doing to a boy. And when they do it to a girl, it's taking off the outer sheathing of the clitoris, which is essentially what becomes a penis on a boy, because we're all started off as females in the womb. But anyway, and it reduces their sensitivity and other things. The same with men. So, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You've got to actually look at both sides of the coin here. And if you're not going to do it to girls, you should be doing it to boys. And I think it's just a ridiculous cultural thing, and I've never agreed with it. So that's what I have to say about that. The Catholic Church, I don't know if any of you have ever seen those really hot Catholic Church, the priests, like the naked priests or whatever, and they're not having sex or anything, but they're just all like naked and they're covered up just barely, and they're like serving these big chalices of wine, and it's just very homoerotic, all of them. And one of the parishes, apparently, I always thought those were fake. I thought they were just models whom were posing to be in these calendars, or these shoots. But actually, it turns out that they are real, part of a real diocese in Italy, and this diocese is known as being like the black sheep of the of the diocese of the Vatican or whatever. And so they have been coming down on them because they've been posting nude pictures of themselves and doing other things against the Catholic Church. I personally, for one, am all for it. I think that's fantastic. And, you know, anything that goes against the Catholic Church, I'm all for. Speaking of that, Pope Francis, as you well know, recently came out and said, in support of more supportive of gay people. He wasn't exactly like all gay, happy and everything, but he was essentially saying that gay people get into heaven just as like everybody else, and we should love each other and love gays and not hate them and not judge them, which is basically the message of Jesus or whatever. And so, which is what the Pope is supposed to do and uphold. So that's great. And that's why this Pope is a little different than previous generations, many previous generations of popes. However, So he came out, was very positive, and there were all these headlines about it. And then this week he retracted that statement, and the diocese actually said that no, that's not necessarily true, and gays are not to be emulated or considered to be normal, and blah blah blah. So he got into a lot of trouble by the cardinals around him. And the reason this is important, even if you're not Catholic, which I'm not, or religious, which I'm not, even if you're not, the reason it's important is because you have the Pope, whom is someone who really oversees an entire population's groupthink or zeitgeist or whatever, the way they think as a whole, as a group. And he controls their minds and their way of thinking, especially for devout Catholics. And what he says goes, because he's supposed to have a direct line to God, blah, blah, blah. And so they listen to what he says. And so that's why it's important, is because you have all these people in the world, millions and millions of people who follow what the Pope says. And if he's saying that it's great that being gay is equal to being heterosexual, and that gays can get into heaven even if you don't believe in that stuff, these people will begin to see gays as equal. And that's important, whether you agree with their religion or not, which I don't. It's important to our culture, to our society, to gay people in general, and to our civil liberties, to have people on our side and to understand that we are the same, because that's the first step. You've got to look at our people, our brothers and sisters in the gay community and GLBT community, I should say, and understand that we actually are, we're all one, and we have to all be on the same side, and we have to be understood as people just like them. And that's always the first step. So that's why it's an important thing. So hopefully things will change again and he'll come back around. I don't know, but whatever happens. We shall see. The other thing I was talking about was, there was more thing I was talking about, the straight bi men. And that apparently there's a lot of straight men who watch gay porn. There was a study, a very in-depth study about heterosexual men whom admit to watching gay porn. So I want to read some of these quotes to you that these straight, quote unquote, straight men said from Queerty. He says, "So I have a girlfriend of almost 3 years and recently started to jack off to gay porn. I don't know what it is about it, but it kind of turns me on. I was just wondering if anybody else in the same boat as me. Would love to hear from you." And then somebody responds and says, "Well, Mikey, I have to go with you on this one. I would never want to engage in gay sex, but watching it somehow makes me hard as a rock. I have only watched a movie once, but I read stories on the net. And matter of fact, I am hard now just thinking about it." And this other guy says, "I'm straight, but I do watch gay porn and guys masturbating. I thought I was weird until I looked at the other reviews. Good to know lots of guys do that. Thank goodness I'm not the only one. I'm straight, but watch gay porn. I love girls, but gay guys just turn me on from time to time. I'm straight, but I've masturbated with my friends, and one time, one of my friends and I started oral, then it led to anal. I've always wanted to try it again because it felt so good, but I'm afraid to bring it up again, so I masturbate and think about it instead." And on and on and on. There's like all these things from Reddit and these other posts and stuff. And it's just truly not surprising to me at all. I mean, I've known so many straight gay men, as I call them, or gay straight guys, whatever, who are attracted to gay men or attracted to men in general, but don't act on it usually. And even when they do, they still think they're not gay. Now, does it make them gay to have sex with another man? I think it does, personally. Yes, I do. Does it make them gay to fantasize about it? I'm not sure. I don't know if fantasizing about it makes you gay. Like, have you ever fantasized about having sex with a woman? I have in the past to see what it would make me feel. Didn't do much for me. But it does not make me heterosexual to fantasize. So I guess it doesn't. So if a heterosexual man fantasizes about having sex with gay men, I don't think it makes him gay. I think what makes you gay is if you have to act on it, need to act on it. And as someone once asked me, I had someone ask me once, he was straight, or he is straight or whatever. He asked me, "So how do you know you're gay?" And, or what's the difference? I said, well, it's not just the sex. It's not, the sex is one part of it. Yes. But you have to be attracted to other men, first of all, and want to have sex with them and want to suck cock or get fucked or vice versa, whatever. But the other thing, part of it is the more important part, is that you have to be able to have an emotional relationship with men fall in love with men and actually want to be with men and have a life with a man, and that's the difference. And so just because someone has sex with someone of the same sex, it doesn't make them gay. They have to also be able to fall in love with a person or whatever. That's my definition of it.